Good morning, everybody, and welcome to What is the Positive? I'm really kind of excited today because I'm so unprepared, but I've got all these kind of notes and things that I want to share with the world. And we're having some interesting action in the uh, audience today, and I want to thank these people for showing up. Dr. Margaret Aranda, Barbara Quick, the Death Chicks, then I would assume that that's probably Misty Lynn. And Missy J is with us today, and so I appreciate you folks coming in, and welcome to the What is the Positive show. What is the positive? The positive is that there is a polarity to the universe, and that if you focus on the positive, which is one of the two polarities, plus and minus, good and bad, fear, confidence, and love, and there are polarities to the universe. And if you polarize positively, it's going to affect your life positively. We're going to get into this more today. And the objective is if people focus on not just the goody two shoes, think positively, wish people well, and be positive, be positive, be positive, while inside you are being so fearful and negative that you cancel the concept of being positive, that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about coming to the conclusion that is within your control to actually exercise some energy and be positive and positively affect your outcome, your experience, your life. And in that way, take control of what's going on and maybe realize that, gee, we're not victims after all. I actually have the power to control my life. Now, that's the very, very short range extension of what we had tried to achieve in this program. But today we're going to break it down to some other things. And with me to break it down are some three very, very intelligent and insightful people that I'm really glad to have with me today. And first I would like to introduce Carlos Savio. Say hi and tell people a little bit about what you do.
Hi, I'm Carlos Savio in Las Vegas. I'm a small business management and financial consultant, and one of my hobbies is world religions. That's it.
Okay, how about George? George, actually he goes by George Stewart. I don't know exactly ever what to call him, but he's George. Hi, George.
What a lovely introduction.
Yeah, it's recorded for posterity.
Yeah, I've had problems with my posterity for a long time. I guess I'm here as the comic relief, am I? I'm based in central Tennessee, just south of Nashville, as you can tell from my accent. Life traveler, and here to be of service and to share what little bits I've learned along the way. That's pretty much. I've had a very checkered career. I've got far too much to go into right now. So whatever I can bring and offer, I'm happy to.
Well, you say checkered career, but that also says a very wide range and far-reaching education that you've achieved, and you're very good at bringing it back up and applying it to the reality of the present. So we're glad to have you here, and thank you very much for showing up also. Also, we have with us Shira Hunt, and I'm just so glad that you like this show and that you want to be here every week. So it pleases me that you're here. So Shira, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. Thanks, Roland. I'm Shira, and I'm a vibrational medicine teacher and therapist. I'm also a bit of an integrity coach if you work with me. I use sound and frequency in treatment.
Very good.
I love being a part of this.
And by the way, one of our future episodes, we're going to completely dive into what Shira does, because it's exemplary of the fact that the universe is energy, and that if we address the concept of energy, energy can change, vibration can change our physicality. Not only that, it can change our mental and emotional and spiritual experience completely. But the body is not separate from that. It's all in one, and that's why it can be affected that way. So just to reach out again, we have WeWake is there. WeWake, we cannot. It's such a hard name. I'm sorry, WeWake. We call him WeWake because I love the fact that yes, we all need to wake up, right? So We Wake is quite a nice call to action for a name. And Misty Lynn is out there with us, and also, let's see, Randy, where are you? Randy Smith is out there. I'm really that there are even minor expectations. We'll see what we can do. The concept of this show is that being positive will affect your life. So what we try to do within the show is give reasons for people to think positively. And after a while, you'll be nodding your head saying, yeah, they said this, yeah, they said that. And they came up with a lot of great that's really reinforcing to be positive. Being encouraged to be positive is one thing. We all need encouragement. However, when you feel inspired to be positive because you realize that that's part of your power in life, people start doing it more on purpose. And when you are positive on purpose and believe it, there are different things that kick in. Well, it overrides your hope. You surpass your hope, and you become inspired. And you have faith, not because the word means that maybe you'll be saved if you have faith, but because faith is a part of your being and it's a way of life. It's just like as soon as something comes into your life that's threatening or challenging, you simply know you're going to overcome it. And that's a part of true faith. Because if you doubt, that's not true faith. That's really the opposite of faith. Having fear, having anger, all these things are the opposite of faith. So there's a few things to challenge me on right off the bat. But anyway, and you're welcome to do so in the comment stream if you have comments or questions or things to add to what we're saying or doing. Please do. You're welcome to do it, and I hope you'll interact with everybody. There's a lot of great people out there, and I'm hoping that you'll meet each other and share among yourselves as well as with us in the group. So the title of this concept today, I placed it because, number one, I like Disney movies. And Pinocchio has been my hero from way back. You know, not so much Pinocchio, but actually Jiminy Cricket. Because when I was a kid, everybody has seen the show. Well, tell me if I'm wrong. If you've never seen Pinocchio, that would be an interesting subject in itself. But all the kids grow up knowing about Pinocchio. And they come up with this song and this saying that when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. And it's such an elaborate thing. You know, the song starts, the cricket's looking up into the skies. He sees the glowing star, and he makes this wish, or he implies, let's wish. You know, let's use this star. There's a power here. And let's think about that for a second. First of all, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to come back to Earth. I know I've been talking about Disney, but now we're going to come back to Earth and talk about the basics of what the universe is all made of. And I think that we can probably agree, it's been said a lot recently, from law of attraction studies to scientific studies and physics studies and everything else, and even religious studies are starting to lean this way too, that everything is energy. So what connects us in the universe? Energy. We are not out of touch technically with anything, because as a mass of energy we are one. And that's the same thing that God in the biblical sense has been conveying to us. When Jesus said, I and the Father are one, he meant that we're indivisible. We're all part of the same thing that's connected with the energy of the universe. Now let's take it a step further. Thought is energy, and there are huge debates about this, but as far as I understand it for my own use, and a lot of people agree, thought is energy. It can be weighed, measured, and has substance. Now, there are debates about when people pass on, whether their body actually weighs less, and the reasons that it weighs less. I think that they'll come to the conclusion someday that all of their physical attributes, when the body changes after the person passes away, they're part of the spiritual essence of the spirit leaving. It's not simply, oh well, yeah, he dehydrated and blah blah blah, and they'll explain it in physical terms that they can understand, but it is indeed the spirit leaving. So the spirit is connected to this universe thing, and thought connects us to every particle in the universe. Now let's think about that for a second. If thought can be weighed, measured, and has substance, and we're thinking all the time, then we are literally putting out this essence of matter being affected by the vibration of our thoughts. So is it so hard to believe that prayer works from this point where I am right here, that if I pray for somebody on the other side of the earth, that it takes no time at all to reach that person and affect their experience? Why do people pray? Well, first of all, there's a little bit of hope that they can help somebody, because you're so far away from the other person, or you're different, you're separate. You see yourself as separate, at least, from the other person, and they're suffering, and you just want to help them out. So what do? We offer prayer. Now, in my opinion, prayer is great. Prayer is wonderful, but so is just positive thinking. And when you come right down to it, from the experience that I've had, I judge that everything that I think and do is prayer. In other words, if I'm thinking well of somebody, feeling good, that's prayer. That's generating a positive vibration with positive thinking to the other person. That is essentially a form of prayer. Now you can sit there and you fold your fingers together and crouch down in the position, if you will, and say a formal prayer that's frameworked in the same thing that your church says this is how you pray. And it's not any less or more powerful than the person saying the prayer. So the format doesn't matter, the vibration does. So these things happen, and I've got too much proof in my life that prayer has worked, both in light healing and in verbal prayer and in thought prayer meditation. Prayer works. And so if you're convinced about something like that, let's take it even a step further, and we're going to dive into the realm of fantasy. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. So first of all, the idea of your dreams coming true. Your dreams are always something that are just something out of reach. There's just one step beyond, and geez, it would be so wonderful if this could happen. And so we tuck those away in a little classification in our lives called dreams. And then we have advice from some people that say, you got to go out and live your dreams. Live your dreams. Don't just talk about it. Don't just think about it. Don't just set them on the shelf. But go out there and live your dreams. Why do people do this? Well, why do they suggest that you do that? Because when you step out of the shell that you boxed yourself into, thinking, I probably can't do it, or I probably can't do it yet, but one day I'm gonna do this thing. So it falls into the category of dreams. But why aren't you just going out and pursuing it now? And at some point people say, well, I've just gotta cling on to it as a possibility and hope that it comes true eventually. So they don't let it go completely, but nor are they actively pursuing it. And that's what the millions and billions of people around the world are living right there. So if you're thinking about something that you want to do or want to have or want to experience, and it's part of your dream world, my consideration is that you could be living your dream if you want to and if you do. So let's go back to Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket staring up in the sky. If all things are energy, then we are energy, thought is energy, our vision is energy, in the universe before us, what we observe is all energy. People talk about this thing called a spiritual cord, and they insinuate that when you meet your best friend who's going to be your life partner and this and that. And maybe, okay, we could have different life partners and maybe a lot of spiritual cords in a lot of directions, and we've lived lots of lifetimes. Let's not get into that. But the idea is people are tied together by spiritual cords. One of the things that I learned when I was young, barely in my teens, was that people have spiritual cords with their family members and with friends and with acquaintances. I extrapolated that out a little further in my own thinking and thought, everyone you ever see, touch, hear, or anything at all, you have a spiritual cord with. It's just a matter of whether you strengthen and grow that spiritual bond or not. And then I took it a step further. It's just like, well, that's the people that I think about, but we are all created in the same breath of God, or the same movement, or the same creative move. So inevitably, we all came from the same place. Don't we have a spiritual cord upon inception? Just being here, I am tied to everything that I'm talking to, everyone that I'm talking to, excuse me, and everything that I can see, and everything that I can hear. But those things are connected to everything else in the universe, and so on and so forth. We're all connected. So what is this connecting substance that makes everything work? Well, somewhere along the line is energy. And when people say energy, they are usually thinking about electricity, what am I trying to say? What's it called? Nuclear energy, water power. They think of force of atoms moving atoms in the sense that they can understand it. But when you boil it down, our thinking are atoms affecting atoms. And so if that's the case, then when you're standing out in your yard at night and you look up at a star and it makes you feel good, it's like, wow, it's a bright, shiny star. It makes you feel good. Guess what? The feeling good is polarized positive. And if you attribute the whole concept to, well, it's a nice star, it's lighting eye evening, it looks great in the sky, and gee, there's this old saying that if you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. And then inside you start thinking, wow, what would I wish for? I know what I wish for. Yeah, but it can't happen, but I'm going to wish anyway, and just for the heck of it, I'm going to wish upon the star. But as you're sitting there dwelling on the star, you're actually strengthening the bond, spiritual bond that you have with that star. It's actually growing. It's part of the experience of who you are spiritually, and it's growing because your thought is generating energy that way. And not only that, you're seeing it and it's strengthening it with you. So when this duality comes in and the bond is strengthening, you're actually projecting a stream of atoms that connect you with that star. It's like an antenna extending out into the universe, vibrating at this frequency that is you. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. If you can see this wire between you and a star just extending out into the universe, even if it's a tiny, tiny wire, but that wire is there, and it's a spiritual cord in this case, but nevertheless it's a wire. And generated by thought, there's an energy generating off that wire. It's like pulsating like a radar signal or radio signal, and you're telecasting that to the universe. And you're wishing this wish, and it's generating out there, and according to the basic rules of the law of attraction, that which is like unto itself is drawn. Now, if you sit at home wishing that you had something, your antenna just goes out just so far, right? Because you haven't told anybody, you haven't expressed it, you're embarrassed to say that this is what you want. But if you're wishing upon a star and being honest about it, you're probably telling your friends and your family and everybody you know and just spreading the word, and you're part of that generation outwards, and you've got that antenna reaching out to the star. Guess what? Your signal is going everywhere. And what you attract is not limited to the few people around you, the few feet around you, or the atmosphere, or even the town you live in. what you're wishing for and focusing on in your thoughts is grabbing the universe. And whether you see the star and see the relationship to the star, see the wire and the antenna or not, it's actually happening all the time. Now, you giving a thought to it makes it even more, because there are a lot of people who have addressed this many times, and some of the positive sayings that we will incorporate in the second half of this show basically support this concept that when you think about things and thoughts are incorporated into your good feelings, you are actually drawing those things to you. And in differential to the people who would say, oh no, law of attraction doesn't work. I've tried it and it doesn't work. I can tell you exactly why it didn't work. And this is Law of Attraction 101. Because the negativity and the doubt that they had in wishing for what they're wishing for was stronger than their belief that they could have it. It's as simple as that. And why do things not come your way when they say, let's focus on this and manifest it and struggle and strive and work hard and do all these things? It could come a lot easier if there was not negativity driving that thing away from you. So a little bit of law of attraction here. But basically, when you wish upon a star, yes, your dreams can come true. It's a wire telecasting out to the universe, and that's going to draw to you what you wish for, as long as it's not coupled with the negativity, which will kill any dream before it gets started. So, with these thoughts in mind, does anybody have any feedback for me so far? Because I've been rambling for 15, 20 minutes.
Just one page full.
Okay, I'm ready.
So you woke up so many things in me. There's like a fire in the hall right now. Okay, so
well, I'm glad. That's good.
So first, this thing that you're calling the wire, it might be easier for people to see that as it's actually a wave pattern. It's a frequency wave pattern, like a radio wave. You can't see it. But to me, one of the most valuable things that we have to embrace at this time in our life is that the invisible is much more powerful than the visible. So if we can begin to look through spiritual eyes rather than through these physical eyes, because the spiritual eyes are the things that begin to connect with what you are calling the energy. Okay? Energy, everything is energy. All energy vibrates. All vibration makes a sound. Sound is the starting point of creation. That vibration creates a manifestation. And so that is how we get what you are calling our dreams. And I would go one step further with, we're all getting our dreams in every single moment. You are dreaming constantly. And so you take a look at your world and look at what you got, and you'll know what you're dreaming. So if a person isn't clear about what they are projecting into their field energetically, if they say, I want this, but I keep getting that. Well, if you say, I keep getting that, that is that invisible, energetic wave pattern that is being emanated from you, because it's bringing that back to you. So that's your dream in this moment. And until you understand that that's your dream, or you take responsibility for it and begin to change it, this is what you will always have.
And
this is kind of, I'm sorry?
I wanted to interject on that people, they have their conscious thought, but they have their subconscious or unconscious thoughts also. And all of them generate the same energy. So if you've got something that you're doing automatically in practice and you believe, and these things are like the automatic responses of your life, those are the frequencies going out. And if you're used to doing the same drudgery thing every day, and that's the frequency that you're attuned to, that's what you're creating as your future also. And if you think about your life and think, gee, nothing exciting happening, it's the same old thing, and it's because of your thought patterns that are subconscious and conditioned, causing this thing to perpetuate itself, and your life doesn't change the way you want it to. And yet there are other people who are not necessarily rich or famous or anything, but they're so creative and so outreaching with their thoughts that they're not trapped by this drudgery of the same old, same old, same old. And lo and behold, their the experiences are vastly different from what the same drudgery experience is of the other person. Go ahead, Shira.
Right. So ultimately, I think the very first piece is to really become aware of the dream. And if you have something in your life like lack of finances or lack of a personal relationship that you really want, or this is about you being aware of that piece within yourself. If you have a lack of finances, then you do not feel abundant. You do not feel flush. You do not feel whole and full within yourself. The same with a relationship. If you think that there's nobody to love you, well, you got to love yourself. The most appealing thing to me in another human being is when they emanate love, when they emanate their joy, when it just flows from them, that inside, man, I know I'm okay. I'm totally attracted to that person. And so is
Absolutely.
everyone else, And so for us to come into right understanding about what really is buried in there, our lack of appreciation of ourselves, our lack of value within ourselves, that's the dream that we're putting out there, and so our life stays like that. We have to begin to unlearn what we were taught as children by well-meaning parents who were trying to make us responsible. We learned that we weren't good enough. And that isn't true. It's a lie. It's a lie. We came here whole, complete, and perfect. We are good enough in every moment. And when we begin to embrace that piece and we say, whatever we have right now, it's enough. What do I do with it? Let's bring it. That's the start to raising the frequency a notch so that you can begin to bring into yourself the joy that you think you don't have. Okay? It's in you, and you have to actually express it in order for your world to reflect it back to you.
Yes. So let's smack the nail on the point. I'm sorry. I'll just say this real quick. What about, and I know I have my own answer for this question, even though I'm going to ask it. What about the people that are sitting there thinking, well, if I could just find the right woman or the right guy in my life, and if I could just find my dream person, I could be happy for the rest of my life. And they've set that as the condition of their happiness. So now I know what I would tell them. What would you tell them?
I got a pithy comment to share.
Go ahead, George.
The pithy comment department wants us to jump in. There's a common saying within humanity that seeing is believing. We got it back asswards. Believing is seeing. It manifests when you believe it, and not the other way around.
Completely. It's one of the most important points of this entire series is the belief is so important because it structures everything within your experience. Go ahead, Shira.
I was just going to say the first thing that I would ask, if a person believes that they have to find the perfect mate in order to be happy forever, is I would first ask, and how many have you had thus far? because ultimately, we meet that new person and we fall in love. It's like, the things, here's something that I've discovered working with hundreds of clients and even through my own personal experiences, is that the thing that we fall in love with in that person is the thing that we are unable to recognize within ourselves. And so this is a piece that we need to cultivate within ourselves. If that person is so sweet to you, or if that person is humorous, or if that person ignites your thought process, is constantly bringing new things to you, these are the things within yourself that you have put to sleep. And so you are that piece of you wants to wake up, wants to be alive so much that you are drawn to that in the other. And so if we begin to look at them, at the partner that we think would be the perfect one for us, with an eye of, what is it that I love about them? And how does that reflect within me? Now we really have something to focus on, to find that magic within ourselves.
Yes, and it brings to mind the whole concept of be the change that you want to see. So
Yes.
if you're lonely without the person and you're thinking this is what I want, this kind of a person will just make me happy, you've got to start vibrating in the happiness of that frequency and quit dwelling on the negativity of where you think you are and vibrate. It's kind of like build a house before the people will enter it, you know? You have to have a house of peace and have a house of love, and then people will flock into it. It's not the other way around, and people are too busy being whoever or whatever they are and thinking, wow, if this person walks into my life, I'll give up drinking and I'll keep on doing this and I'll give up a lot of stuff and I'll be really with that person and I'll make a difference and I'll be happy. And it's like, ah, so you're saying that happiness can be handed to you from without and from the outside, and something other than in yourself will make you happy, and that's your equation for life. And it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It does not work because happiness starts within. And it's the same thing that we encountered in our last episode when Barbara Quick was in the audience in the green room with us, and she told us about her son that came to the conclusion, yeah, happiness comes from within. It's not added to us by meeting the right person or something else. Happiness comes from within, and that was enlightenment and very insightful from a young man, and that was something to discover early. If everyone could discover that as early as that, the world would be a happier place. Maybe even be a Disneyland on wheels. We'd have the happiest place on earth because the whole earth would be happy. But anyway, that's back to the concept of being more in control and in charge of your own life. But just saying, and you're welcome to interject right now, and I'll pause my speech so that I'm not overwhelming. Was there something you wanted to add, George or Carlo?
I was just reflecting on, and I'm just as guilty, according to global statistics on relationships and official marriages and divorce, we see that too many people stop looking for a relationship when they're in one.
That's interesting, because they committed themselves to something, and it turned out to be unfulfilling, and now they're kind of stuck, right?
Yeah, as the story goes, it's like the person who goes out to the local bar to find their soulmate and then get annoyed a few months later when they come home drunk.
That's probably a very common story.
There's the old saying as well about marriage is a great institution, but who the hell wants to live in an institution?
You know, ultimately, too, I think that one of the things that has happened for us culturally is that we get lost in the relationship, is that we come to the relationship looking for something that we think we're missing. And so then it becomes a game of trying to get more of that within the relationship. And we lose ourselves to what we're trying to get. And we become unsavory to the other person after a while. You know, it becomes old stuff after a while, and we're no longer living who we really are, trying to get something that we think we need. And oftentimes it happens on both sides because we're told that we're supposed to marry our better half, which means something must be wrong with us.
Good point.
Yeah, and so we must be lacking something if we've got to find a better half, you know, and so we kind of come into it that way, and we lose ourselves in the relationship, and we even quit striving to be who we really are, to please the other, to get what we need in return, and it just gets really, the cycle gets deeper and deeper and deeper until people become so unhappy they divorce, they leave each other, or they live like my parents lived, unhappy for a long lot of years of their lives.
Yeah.
But it's till death do you part, and it was a slow death, let me tell you.
Yeah, wouldn't you agree that the life gives us our biggest lessons in relationship? That's where we have the biggest opportunity to learn.
It's the only opportunity.
Yeah.
Even that, and that includes relationship with self as well. That's an important point to not miss.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's always about. It's always about us. It's never about the other person. And I think ultimately the very things that we would see as our problems, okay, this is the issue in this relationship, or this is the issue in my life, these are our gifts. These are our opportunities. Whenever anything in my world shakes me in such a way that I think I don't want that to happen, I say, oh, why? Why? What's happening in you that this looks negative, wrong, hard, less than? What is happening in your perspective that this is what it looks like to you? And then I get to uncover something that was unknown to me because I asked the question. I think that's a big one too, is that culturally we don't ask enough questions. We just put up with, push through, get by, buy a new one. We don't stop and ask the questions. And I mean, life takes time. We need to slow down. Living takes time. And we're on a fast track. We're a train out of control most of the time in our lives. And we just need to slow down and begin to really look at what is it that we're desiring? What is it that we're dreaming that we think we don't have? What are we dreaming for that we think we don't have? Why do we think we don't have it? And why are we focused on what we think we don't have rather than being focused on what we aspire to?
It becomes a complicated issue in spite of ourselves. I take life to be very simple, but it is definitely, as George says, not easy. Simple does not equate to easy. And I would like to take us back a bit. And Shira, what you've been talking about is conscious analysis of our lives. But most people are not doing conscious analysis. They're too busy trying to face their fears and face what they think and what they imagine that their world is all about, and that's how they're facing and then confronting their experience, as opposed to sitting back and saying why, asking the question why. But as an internet marketer by the heart, that's part of the modus operandi of being into internet marketing, is you're always asking why. Is it the best choice? How did the choice turn out? What are the statistics? What is it telling me? What feedback have I gotten to let me know, did I do it right or do I need to adjust? And that's exactly how we should live our lives, because it's all an experiment, right? We're experimenting. We're practitioners on life, and so we got to keep practicing. But one of the things that I wanted to go back to was the when you wish upon a star. There are still people, whether you're thinking of superstition from the standpoint of standing out in your backyard, wishing upon a star and making a wish, and whatever, it's all basically a form of superstition, right? I mean, it's thinking even the thought that, gee, if I met the right person and they came into my life, that person could make me happy. Even that is superstition, because it's not true. And it's something that you formulate in your mind saying, this could make me happy. And when people believe stuff like that, I call that superstition. So we're living in a superstitious world. If it's not the traditional superstition, it's still some level of superstition. And it's something that you imagine, and it's not necessarily real, but you believe it. And so here's this superstition. We're thinking about it. So with everyone out there thinking on the levels that they are, with varying levels of superstition, they're imagining something can be better. And they're thinking, well, I don't know how to get it, but I've got to have some elemental, they call it faith and hope, and I can know that it'll be okay, and somebody's going to save me, and there's God. I can always turn to God. So they look outside themselves for the answer that they're not aware of, that they can create themselves. And when this superstition comes in mind, and when the doubt that they have the power, and their feeling of disconnect from the universe, this imaginary feeling of disconnect from the universe, people are in this position to wish upon a star. to try to do something to connect with their dreams, even though they don't believe that they can do it themselves. And this is where most people are. They're saying, I know what I want. I can't seem to get it. I don't know how to manifest it. I can't get the right job. I can't. And they don't realize that they're actually molding their experience in that thought. But there are many people who are reaching a little bit higher. They're polarized positive, and from wherever they are, they're thinking, well, dude, I'm almost destitute. I'm going to be kicked out of my apartment. I'm going to lose this. They're going to confiscate my car. What can I do? But they're reaching up a little bit. They're trying to find something positive in their lives. And it's still the cart before the horse because they're still trying to plug the gap, right? They're still trying to fulfill this thing that, like the lover that they're expecting to magically pop into their life, it's the same thing. I might win the lottery. You know, everyone clings on to some thought that has an element of superstition.
Roland?
Yes.
Just one thing that you said there. The thought, what can I do? Big error. What can I be? There's a shift.
I think the major shift comes in the fact that it's not what can I, it's what do I want to do. Because when people finally become empowered, and which is what all the self-help things and all the business programs today are supposed to do, is help people grab the tools and become empowered. Because if they do something and if they do it towards their goal, it's gonna work. Something's going to happen, and they're going to get some progress. And the magic of internet marketing today is not so magical. It's a lot of hard work. But that you've got to be energized to actually go out and do it. You need a little bit of education. You need a few good turns from people who know what they're doing. But basically, you have to get out there and do it. So showing up and being present are very vitally important. But people aren't used to that. They're used to being handed. They're used to stumbling onto something, and they don't feel empowered. And the universe is so challenging. They feel too incapable of succeeding in manifesting what they want.
So I have a really simple tool and I want people to really breathe this in, because the simple things are the really powerful things. And this is profound if you take it in and use it. Okay? The truth of the matter is that the very first thing that you started with in this wishing on a star was your thought processes, being energy, carrying weight, manifesting something physical. And this is true. And here's the thing about the thoughts. When a thought is created and comes forth from your mind, it is either love or fear. That thought carries a frequency, carries a power of some kind. And if it is based in love, then your thought is aligned with coming to service for the planet, for being part of the solution in this human evolution. And if that thought comes with a negative connotation, fear, sadness, anger, something that feels like it has you instead of you are experiencing and expressing and releasing it, but it is dragging you down, so to speak, then your frequency process is feeding the wars, the poisoning, the toxicities, the water polluting. And we need to understand how powerful that piece really is. And that any time that something gets my attention and pulls me into thinking about a war, I become totally aware and I say, okay, Shara, where's your energy going? How can you be of service in this moment? And I bring a space of, at the very least, Love and acceptance that in this moment something is happening that I can't change, but I'm going to bring my peace, the peace of I, to this space. And I'm going to rest in that. So if I can give nothing more than my personal love to whatever the, expression of fear is, then that's all I have to give. I'm going to do that in this moment, and I'm going to raise the frequency a notch. And so if you have a fear that you can't get the right job, just a small shift. I'm open to a job that will get me out of this hole. That'll just take me out of this space. Maybe it's not the perfect job, but it's maybe a bridge. I'm open to that. If you just be open to it, you've changed the frequency.
There it is. It's not about finding yourself in the best place. It's about the movement of life and evolution and movement. So I wanted to focus on this just for a few minutes. The concept of, you spoke of fear and love. And I'm going to display these couple of sets of terms here. And I want everyone to understand the polarity of it. By the way, Misty Lynn asked the question. I haven't really had a chance to wrap my brain around it yet, but she challenges us to answer or respond to a certain comment. So we'll bring that up in a second. I'm very sorry that Comment Tracker refuses to install in Hangouts anymore. And I think I'm anxious to know if anybody can get it to work. But we cannot, so I can't use the Comment Tracker to display your comments, and I apologize for that. But we're going to deal with Misty Lynn's concept in just a minute, and we'll tackle it as a foursome. And as the people in the audience, too, will maybe have some comments, too. So, and WeWake is making some really good comments on the outside. I will address them, not necessarily in this hour, because we got less than 15 minutes to go. But I will address everything that people are mentioning and asking and commenting on in the stream. Thank you very much. So on the negative side of polarity, we've mentioned time and time again fear. And when I think about it, I heard it expressed really well the other day. They gave me the concept of anger is simply expressed fear. And fear and anger go hand in hand as part of the same thing. So if you see somebody who is angry at something, it's based on fear. And I've been saying this for years, that anger is based on fear, because if you didn't need to get angry, it's because you didn't fear this concept of whatever it is you're dealing with. When you fear it, you get past the fear. What do people do? They buck up, they get strong, they get angry. And so the anger basically is a shielding mechanism and a strike back from the concept of the person is in fear about something. So when we talk about the layers of positive to negative, fear is definitely on the bottom of the rung, and fear and anger are the bottom polarity of this whole thing. And you think of it from the standpoint of, just as the plus and the plus is above the minus, and the little icon in the right corner covering my elephants in my screen here. But the plus is when you rise up. It's also the concept of, gee, when we become enlightened, we rise up. When you look to the sun for warmth, you're rising up. You're looking upwards. And it's like when you fall down, you get back up. So the polarity is there. Negativity, fear, anger is on the bottom of the rung. Now, after a while, it's no longer quite so fearful and angry ridden, but you still have a lot of doubt and a lot of worry because something could happen, because something did happen, and it's evidence that we are vulnerable and victims, and you doubt that you can pull yourself away from it. Then there's at least periodically in a place where you consider partial safety, or you're safer than you were, or like, I can take a deep breath of air and relax for a little bit. You're okay, and maybe even content. Now, some analysis puts content way up above that, but I think that there's something above content. Contentment is like fine where we are and so forth, but the next steps above that is to be inspired and motivated, or actually motivated then inspired, because as I've said time and time again, inspiration beats motivation any day of the week. And so when you're motivated, yeah, you're willing to do it, and you'll get into it, and you'll do what you have to do, but you've got to be pushed a little bit to be motivated by something on the outside. When you're inspired, you're motivated from within, and you're driven from within. It's no longer a need to be motivated because you've got your own energy to accomplish what you want to. That's inspiration. And then beyond that is where you are achieving through all of this. You become fulfilled and you become enlightened. So this is the negative stepping into the positive as you consider these things. So trying to point to these things, I can't do it. And but anyway, from the standpoint of the starting point, negativity, fear, anger, doubt, worry, those are all negative charges. And if you feel safe and okay, you're kind of neutral at least. You're not going negative at least. But above that, you become action-oriented. And you take some action, either thought or deed. You take some action and become action-oriented, creating some energy into the universe, talking to people, visiting people, doing something, attacking your job, whatever it is you're doing, you become empowered. And when you do this enough, you reach this point where you're more enlightened and more fulfilled, and maybe even more divine and godlike in our human experience. Because part of what I believe is that we are here as humans to express ourselves the best way possible. And I think the conclusion in the long run is that we are just angels pretending to be human, discovering that we are angels. Because that's kind of like the game of life here. So eventually we come back around to the point where, oh yeah, that's right, we're angels. What do you think of that? Anyway, I know that that's a mouthful, but it speaks to what we talked about last week about either we are all divine or nothing is.
And ultimately, what you're pointing out here, I mean, for those of us who have attained some levels of internal joy and internal happiness, and we're not really, we know that to think that something outside of us is going to make us happy, it's a recipe for disaster.
Definitely.
We know that. But there are a lot of people who don't know that yet. And there's another little piece of information that I think is really empowering when you embrace it, is that like psychological studies and brainwave patterning have shown us that the brain is actually hardwired to recognize the negative, dangerous things. We are hardwired for that because as animals, that speaks to our survival. Now, if you know that, now you understand why does the brain take you into the negative thing when you're trying to get into the positive? And so recognize, and I mean, talk to your brain. This is not crazy, people. Your brain hears you. And just say, I know you're afraid. I know you're feeling worried right now. Well, that's because your mother taught you that. That's because that's what they inflicted on us for many, many years growing up. And innately, our body wants us to be aware of those things so that nothing goes wrong to take our life away. So it's always like a life-threatening thing to our brain. When all it is, no, we're not going to get that job this time. We'll get a different one. It's not life-threatening, but we feel like it is. So if we understand that about the brain, then when the brain starts to get negative on us, then take it in hand. Say, yeah, I know that's how you were trained, and I know that that's how you're hardwired. But you know what? There are other options. There are other possibilities. And the positives are as powerful and as strong as anything that you're afraid of. So let's put our attention there for a while. Let's dream of something for a while, at least. Give your negative, worrying brain a break. Just start somewhere. Start somewhere.
Definitely so. And when we release the negative charge of our beings to the worry and to the doubt and those things, even if we stop thinking those particular thoughts for a while, just say, okay, well, I can't change it today, so I'm not going to worry for the rest of the day. I think I'll go to lunch. I think I'll watch a movie. I think I'll distract myself from my negativity. That actually works because you're not charged negatively, generating the negative vibes during all that time, and actually gives yourself a breather to possibly go elsewhere with it. And when you find you're not attaching yourself and bogging and clogging yourself down with these negative thoughts and worries that may or may not ever even happen, it
Yes.
actually allows your consciousness to say, oh, what about this? Oh, yeah, gee, I read a neat book today. Gee, I was visited by a relative or somebody. It was really fun. I got a call from a friend. Gee, I had some fun after all today. And all of a sudden, you're charged positively, and that's the energy you're putting out into the universe. So the charge is major league. That's why this show is called "What is the Positive?" Because no matter where you are, even if you're down deep in the negative, there is something that can be found that can change your charge to positive. So we ask, no matter what the problem is, what is the positive? So Misty Lynn was asking something, and I want to go ahead and release this to the group here and see if we can talk about this for a few minutes, because that's all we've got left. But she mentioned at the beginning of the show, I asked to be challenged, and so here goes. So she's stepping up to the plate. I mentioned that anger and fear being apart from faith. I'm not sure exactly what I said, but I may have said exactly that. I beg to differ. This is Misty Lynn speaking. I beg to differ. We need all our feelings, and I don't disagree. Even the negative ones. This is part of being human. True. The challenge is to notice and accept everything we experience without judgment and without harm. Therein is definitely the challenge, and I agree with you 100%. The main point that I wanted to make was that being fearful is not, you can't have fear and have faith at the same time, because faith implies that you know everything is going to work out. But if you know everything's going to work out, you would have no fear. So if you are in fear and your anger is a result of that fear, then you're not believing that everything is going to work out. So what I meant to stress is that as a charge, fear and anger are the opposite polarity from faith and hope. And so what did you guys have to add to that in the green room?
Think about,
Okay.
thank you. Think about how you think about how you think impacts how you think. So if you put yourself in an attack world, you will wallow in that attack world. So those emotions, we have you use the term hardwired. We're hardwired to experience a multiplicity of thoughts in nanoseconds. And we could look outside of ourselves. We could try to get release from old torments, or we could listen to the wisdom of the soul in a non-sectarian sense. All that information is in there. We human beings think that we're the darling of the universe. But part of that is we are really just expressing the genetic unfoldment of a species when we ask ourselves, oh, if I could kiss this person, or if I could live with that person. We're like the peacock or the, whoever. But it's a question of our thoughts. And we allow that kind of thought to permeate our mind. It's garbage. Thank you.
Absolutely. Misty Lynn followed her statement, and as was saying, as you explained, I guess from what I was saying so well, when we think negative thoughts, have judged about harm. So the negativity causes harm, and I agree totally. I think the point might be somewhat moot, because between the concept of whether or not anger and fear and those things are apart from faith, I think that they are a part of our experience and therefore indivisible. However, they are choices in our consciousness where we polarize in one way or another. And definitely when it comes to terminology, I believe that fear and anger are distinctly the opposite of the concept of faith. And so, you know, we can discuss this probably for another hour on top of this, but basically the idea is what we want to do is change our thoughts and change our polarity so that we are positive, so that we have hope, so that we can exercise faith, and we can stress in this group that when we live our life towards the positive, we will reap more positive outcomes and have a more pleasant experience and be able to meld ourselves and completely immerse ourselves in the concept of love, which, George, you made a point last week of saying love is the highest vibration. So as we're looking up the scale of the anger, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and inspiration and fulfillment, those things, of course, the ultimate objective is love. But the interesting thing that I always find is that even from the lowest possible point of our existence and experience and our mental attitude, we can experience love. And love comes to us and we can exercise it at wherever we are. We can always turn to love and we can always feel it completely. So even though we never got to the second half of this show that I planned, as usual, we've had an interesting conversation. Does anybody have anything that they would like to wrap up before we close the day?
I'm not sure it does, but I've got one as well. Go on, Shira.
Go on, George. I'll wait for you.
Mine's a quick one. I think there's a semantical challenge here between positive and negative, and this is a discussion we've had before. I like to see higher frequency and lower frequency. That's not saying one's right and wrong, because I think positive and negative has that connotation or the potential. So yeah. I look at it in a different way. The fear is the low frequency, and love, enlightenment, call it what you want, is the high frequency. I just see it as tuning the dial. That's me. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you, George. Shira?
I just wanted to respond to Misty Lynn's challenge because ultimately, like everything that you said, I think is very powerful. I think Misty Lynn is right on in the respect of the negative emotions. We said this last week, and you repeated it this week. Either everything is divine or nothing is. And I aspire to that also. So our negative emotions, we tend to, because of the way that we've been culturally raised, we put information on them that they're bad, wrong, less than, negative, depleting, all that stuff. When ultimately it's not about necessarily the anger, the sadness, the grief. It's about being able to express it and release it, that we are supposed to experience all those things given the contrast that presents itself in our world that would challenge us to hold it in a safe place. And so to me, the essence is if I feel angry or I feel sad, then I want to go inside and feel that. And nobody else has to be affected by it. Nobody else even has to know it's happening. I can feel anger, and it takes a lot to even spark an anger in me these days. I don't get angry very easy. But when I was still able to have something that could push an anger button in me, I could go inside and I could literally, in my gut, create a volcano. And I could feel it erupt and come right at the top of my head, and nobody in the world even knew I was feeling it. And I could do that internally and release the anger and then get clarity of why did I feel that? Oh, then all of a sudden when you release the emotion, you get the information as to why you experienced it. And that's what we're all seeking. If you do not release an emotion, if you do not feel the emotion, it does not leave you. It does not leave you. It becomes cellular content, and then it manifests itself as a physical issue over time. And so we are meant to feel those things, but we are meant to feel and release them, and then raise the frequency to the next level.
Agree totally. And in absolutely no way would I ever imply that the negative things don't exist or that we should not feel them. Because in spite of the fact that they call me the ultimate optimist, I'm happy most of the time, and I think I'm very similar to you in that respect, Shira. I very, very seldom get angry. Do I get angry? Hell yes. But in a different way, in a different extent. And the idea for me is when I do get angry, obviously it's from fear of something, and I'll admit it right now. Usually it's a fear that, man, the last time you did this, you fell on your head and hurt yourself, and I fear that you're going to do this again. I'm angry that you would be doing this again, and that type of thing. And I feel angry, and I respond in it. I'll get heated. I'll get my blood pressure up, and sure, I'll act like as anyone else should do. However, then I release it. You're absolutely right, and I become who I am again. When I get past the point and I feel that the initial danger is basically relaxed and gone, I'm back to who I am. And I definitely don't hold on to grudges and hold on to the negativity that keeps me buried and non-flowing in the universal energy that we all live in. So I'm going to wrap it up with this. The positive concept and positivity and negativity can be sensed in just this fashion. The negative feels bad. It does not feel good. You feel things like fear and worry and anger. It feels bad. And the positive feels good. I mean, it's really basically as simple as that. So when people say, oh yeah, the objective is to feel good now, well, they're right, but they have to figure out exactly what it is that they're doing when they feel good, and exactly what they're thinking, and exactly what their intentions are. And to generate it in the right way makes it everlasting. And to achieve it in the wrong way is very, very temporary, very temporal. So regardless of how you break it down, my objective of this day is to allow people to imagine in themselves that it's very possible if they think the right thoughts and they look at from a new perspective, they can feel good now. And you might even want to wish upon a star once in a while and try that and see how it works. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and listening and contributing. I'll be commenting to the comments in the stream, and I encourage my green room participants to do the same in case people have mentioned anything that they said and commented. And it's been a great day. This is our first day, official day of the series, What is the Positive? And there are going to be many, many more to come. Thanks a lot for being with us. Everybody have a good day. Thank you.